Hello everyone, welcome to Live from Abuja, reaching you from Nigeria's capital city.
On this show, we'll take you through major events in politics, entertainment and sports that shaped the week in Nigeria and across the world. Sit
back, relax and enjoy the show. I am Ademola Lawrence.
I am Jane Francis Mweze.
And of course, in an interesting week, we'll begin with the re-election of President Bola Tinubu as the chairman of the Authority of Head of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States for another year.
Speaking at the end of the 65th Ordinary Session of the Authority held at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, President Tinubu said he will continue his best to serve and build on the democratic values and the structure that has been inherited.
President Tinubu also urged member states to honor their financial obligations to enable ECOWAS to meet the expectations and recommendations of the Ministers of Defense and Finance. Stressed that peaceful and secure society is essential for achieving this potential.
And this is as member states move to operationalize the ECOWAS standby force in combating terrorism, which will require not only strong political will, but also substantial financial resources.
Authority of Heads of State and Government at a closed-door meeting elected President Bola Tinubu to continue as the chair of the authority, which he accepts.
I'm accepted to continue the service with great men and great minds committed to democratic value and journey for all in the region. I'll continue my utmost best to serve our interests and build our democratic values and the structure that we inherit. Thank you very much, everyone.
President of Senegal was also given a mandate to mediate between ECOWAS and the three withdrawing countries. At the end of the session, the president of the ECOWAS Commission spoke with journalists on the resolution of the authority on funding of the activation of the standby force.
The experts from our Ministries of Finance will convene within the next 3 months to decide and to assess the various possibilities of raising internal resources to fund the peace and security operations that the community will undertake. There is no specific formula yet. Let us wait for the outcome of the expert consultation.
He also spoke about the state of the eco currency of the region and other issues.
Time frame given for the launch of the single currency is 2027. Provided the various convergence criteria are met. The challenge is meeting those convergence criteria, and member states are encouraged to work on those criteria. So the time frame for now is 2027, and until the heads of state change that time frame, we will go by that.
On humanitarian efforts, the president says ECOWAS has made a provision of about $9 million to support displaced people in the region and another $4 million to support countries hosting some of the displaced persons.
And of course, joining us in the studio to speak on President Tinubu's re-election and resolution from this meeting is our very own foreign affairs correspondent, Moyo Thomas. Moyo.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I think that, first of all, a good news for Nigeria, for President Bola Tinubu, but at the same time, this is a huge task beckon on him. Looking at his re-election as chairman of the economic bloc, what do you think portends for the region and for him as he takes on some of these very drastic decisions?
Okay, so when you started with good news for Nigeria, I just wanted to tell you that it's a lot of work for him at this time. Yeah. So as much as it might be a good news that he has the position, but you know, this is not a very good time for the region, considering the three countries that are threatening to pull out, and he has the mandate right now to ensure that the ECOWAS region does not disintegrate. And if you imagine that, you can imagine the enormous task ahead of him. And considering that it was in his first tenure that these 3 countries pulled out, so now he is here having to ensure that they come back to the region. And they are also threatening not to return because they formed their own alliance. And we know that it's a lot of task. Let me just put it that way. It's an enormous task for him this next 1 year.
Okay, and you know, when you talk about this and then we look at all the things that have happened with Sierra Leone, Niger Republic, and I think Chad, that's the 3rd country, I'm not sure. And
Niger,
Mali,
Burkina Faso. Chad is actually not in ECOWAS.
And then, so you now want to look at the fact that, you know, the leadership he demonstrated during the military coups that happened in some of all these other countries, and then also his stance on military rule. And you're saying that he has this task to bring back, you know, other countries who are also trying to pull out. So how much of a possibility do you think it is for him to exhibit once again this leadership? Because I believe that people were convinced in the way he handled the last year with all the crises, and that's why they said, okay, so let's give him back the mandate. So do you think it's still something he can do?
You know, we all have our fingers crossed, and I guess he also can only be optimistic. And they started the steps. The president of Niger have been mandated to bring back. The president of Senegal, has also been given the mandate to talk to these 3 countries to start the process of the dialogue and ensure the process has actually been going on since about a year ago that they pulled out, but then these 3 countries are very adamant. So we hope that with Senegal being a young president and then being French-speaking like these 3 countries, that he would actually have a headway. And then the ECOWAS Parliament is also making effort to speak with them, because if we look at the downside of them not joining ECOWAS, then it is important to push and ensure they return to the bloc.
You know, there's so many things to look at in this regional bloc, and one of those things is, of course, the issue of terrorism. You look at the issue of terrorism. Now, the ECOWAS bloc wants to form a terrorism force,
a counterterrorism standby force.
Yes. Standby force. Now, if you look at majority of, let's even take, for example, the three countries who joined the Sahel, Niger,
Mali,
Burkina Faso.
Yes.
You look at that particular region or side, you see that, you know, terrorism is a big issue for them.
Yes.
And if it's not being tackled, Nigeria is on the other side, Ghana is on the other side, Gambia is on the other side. So do you think that at this particular time, this standby terrorism force can't do as much? You know, Nigeria has a relationship with Niger, but we've not still been able to tackle terrorism.
Okay, so the standby force at this moment has, the authority has approved it. So the operationalization now is how to raise funds, because they said they need $2 billion annually to fund it. But beyond that, you know, the fact that these countries at the Sahel, including Nigeria, they share intelligence on the best way to tackle issue of insecurity and terrorism. So the counterterrorism can only be as effective as it is planned to be if these 3 countries actually join back. So that is why whatever the counterterrorism force is doing at the moment, they are also encouraging these 3 countries to be a part of it. To come, the technical meeting they had less than 2 weeks ago, the 3 countries were invited. Though they didn't turn up, they were invited because they believe that if we are fighting terrorism in the ECOWAS region, the Sahel area is very important. And these 3 countries are the Sahel. So you can imagine the dilemma before the ECOWAS authority and the whole ECOWAS at the moment. And that is why they would leave no stone unturned to ensure that these 3 countries are back, particularly in the fight for terrorism.
Right, so now we really look at it from the point of the fight against terrorism and how, you know, everyone needs to bring in forces to ensure this. But also, what does it have any economic implication for the ECOWAS countries? How does it affect Nigeria in all the discussions of free trade zone and all of that? So does it affect us?
Okay, so ECOWAS, by their treaty, all member countries can trade within themselves, tax-free, and then you know the free movement. There's a free movement of people, of goods, of services within the country, within ECOWAS region. So these three countries pulling out means, well, if you ask for the downside for Nigeria, it might not be correct to say downside for Nigeria. Let's just look at it holistically for the region, because it means any Nigerian going to these three countries needs a visa. Meanwhile, we are operating a non-visa zone for the whole ECOWAS, and then they also need a visa to come to Nigeria. And you imagine we share border. I was in Damasak some days ago, and immediately I got to Damasak, my network showed "Welcome to Niger," and I was still in Nigeria. That shows the proximity that we have to Niger. So if we now have to start saying you need a visa before you cross to Nigeria and back and forth, it could affect trade, affect economic relations. And also we are not looking at a situation where all the staff working in ECOWAS that are from these countries will have to stop working. And we are talking of almost 200 staff in the ECOWAS body from these three countries. They can no longer work with ECOWAS if they pull out. So it would have more effect. I would say it will have more effect on them than it will have more on Nigeria as a country, because we have the population. They need the population to sell their goods and services. You understand? So, but that still does not cut short the fact that it's not just economic ties that bound us together. We need to look at the security challenge that is actually very prevalent and very important at this time.
And then when you talk about, Ademola, so when you talk about the security challenge, this is also part of the issues, because we've been on this show when someone was talking about the fact that there's a free passage for people from Niger, and sometimes that's how the insurgents have come in and all that. So if they have to apply for visa, wouldn't that be some level of control for that influx of people who we can't account for?
Well, I will leave that for security experts to talk about what's the implication of them seeking visa and how it will help us control. But border management, basically, ECOWAS is doing a lot on border management. And then together with our partners, we have the UN partners and other partners that are helping us in border management, particularly because of insecurity. And I was just telling you about Damasak. At every point, there are military checkpoints that checks and ensure that we do not have influx of insurgents and these bad people come into the country. But because of the porosity of the borders, and then the border is so wide and there is nothing demarcating it, so it's, even with this, even with the ECOWAS, it still is hard to say don't come in. And if they have to apply for visa, they might still walk in, because it's just walk in and walk out. This that porous.
I think one of the challenges that I really wanted to look at is the division in ECOWAS. ECOWAS was 16, if I'm correct, 15 or 16. Now you have 12,
15 countries.
15
yes,
countries.
not 12.
Now 3 out of it. The 3 countries now join the Sahel. Now, how do you think that forming an alliance back will bring a regional integration, unity that we really want to? How do these other 3 countries, their fears, are they being addressed? Because one of the challenges that they have, if I'm correct, is the fact that too much interventions from the West.
Ademola, I need to quickly correct that impression.
Yeah.
Don't forget that these 3 countries that formed the Sahel are military, juntas, junta government.
Yeah.
The ECOWAS region and the world is against unconstitutional takeover of government. They did not take over government the right way. They were not elected. So there is no way we can now try to favor them or try to be their friends or try to say what they did is right. We have to also let them know what they did is wrong.
But the question is that majority of these countries, they're saying their leaders were not doing the right thing. That's why they.
It's still not a reason.
Yes, while I can agree.
You wait out the next election period.
While I can agree,
and then you vote the person you
while
think
I can
is right.
agree with you that is not the right and is not the right channel to go. Now, one of the things that they are saying is that if look, for example, I think is that of Mali or is it Burkina Faso, where he said if he has to come back, releasing the power, that means that there needs to be he wants to contest, or maybe it's Mali, or I can't remember. But what I'm just saying is,
if you want to contest, that is the contest. Remove the military, campaign, contest. What ECOWAS is asking, you have done this. ECOWAS is now asking, give us a timetable for when you. Guinea is also under military junta, under military rule. But then Guinea did not pull out of ECOWAS. Guinea has brought out a timetable, a transition table, and ECOWAS is okay with it. That this is all ECOWAS is asking. Let us see your transition table. And then a country, Niger or one of these countries is asking for 4 years transition. That is unacceptable. 4 years military rule. You know, you understand how military is. There's no democracy in it. The voices of the people are suppressed. No, you understand how it is. It is not what anybody should be under. So
okay. So but then more you're in all of this, and if don't you think that if ECOWAS is going to have a headway with some of these people, you know, to get the people also on their side, can they show some level of conviction that they are backing countries, backing countries to have a smoother electoral process?
ECOWAS has done that. You know, immediately this happened, immediately the military took over. ECOWAS actually started with these very stiff measures. There was a ban. There were so many other measures against them. And then that was actually what got them angry, and they said they were pulling out of ECOWAS. But now, because of that statement that they were pulling out of ECOWAS, ECOWAS lifted the ban. Now we can do trade. They are now not allowing trucks to enter the country. Nigeria has lifted the ban, but they are still not allowing trucks to enter. So people are suffering. There's no food, there's no medication, there's nothing in Niger, particularly. People there are suffering.
Why don't we also look at the political side of this? Because if probably the economical side of it is not being, maybe ECOWAS and the three parties are not being looked at holistically. Okay, economically we want to do this, but there's also the political side of it, and the political side of it is the fact that ECOWAS need to look at these leaders who are in these countries.
Okay, so I also need to make this impression right. Remember that even though this is a bloc, but every country is a sovereign country.
Exactly.
And there is a limit to which you can impose, or ECOWAS can only talk to the leaders, talk to the people, and they do that all the time. They do that. They do give measures that can enshrine democracy, that can encourage democracy in these countries. They help in all these measures. I can count the number of things ECOWAS does in Nigeria just to help the people, to cushion the effect of whatever is happening. They do all this in other countries too. In all these other countries, food supply goes to Niger, goes to Burkina, and they talk to these leaders. But you can't force a leader that this is what you must do for your people. That is not ECOWAS's role. It is not UN's role. It is not any international organization's role. And they're playing their role the best way they can. So it's left for this military to understand that the people need a representative. Even if they want to be the one, remove the military, the camouflage, and wear your Agbada contest. Let the people vote.
But can they bring them back to the bloc? Is it possible?
I believe so. I want to be optimistic too. I know ECOWAS is optimistic, and I'm also sharing the optimism.
Why do you share the optimism?
I want to believe that this last authority meeting they had, the mandate they gave the president of Senegal, he's a young person. He would want to deliver on it. And because they speak French together, he can have an easy way with them. It's just making them understand and seeing the benefit of ECOWAS and the downside of pulling out. Three countries, you can't fight terrorism on your own. You don't even have the wherewithal. You don't have the the force. You need Nigeria by your side. If you need Nigeria by your side, then you have to join ECOWAS. So these are my reasons for being so optimistic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moya, for joining us this morning.
Sorry, Fams.
Thank you too. No. It's important to actually get this message out. Okay. You know, it's to the benefit of the people if we are together. So ECOWAS is doing its bit. We need these three countries to also reason and consider the people, not themselves. Consider the people, come back to ECOWAS. That is the message. All
right, thank you very much, Moyo Thomas, our foreign affairs correspondent. We'll go on a break. While we come back, more straight, Trendline News. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Life is politics.